Awesome. Looks like we're live. Welcome everybody to another daily Facebook Live. What's the date today? It is Tuesday, November 20th. And I appreciate each and every one of you being here with me today. Did anybody have some problems with getting on your Facebook account today? I know mine was pretty much locked out for most of the morning. And then when it finally did work, it was a really slow and painful process to get it loaded. And then I think it finally seemed to have smoothed out after a little while. According to Twitter, Facebook was actually down, Instagram was down, the whole thing. It's amazing how much technology, how reliant we are, right? I don't know about you, but gosh, I have so much of my communication day to day with clients and with different people was through Facebook, and to not have it working, it really threw me for a loop. But it's kind of cool because I had this huge pile of crap that I needed to clean up and was able to get that done instead. All right, I'm just going to share this really quick on a couple of my pages. Give me one moment to do so. And while we're doing that, be sure to say hello. Hey, Linda, how are you? Good to see you on here. Say hello and share your favorite emoji as of lately. Type in your favorite emoji. What's your favorite emoji you've been using lately? Well, that'll be a fun one to use. Mine's definitely the thinker guy. So say hello, and what is your favorite emoji? Then I just have two quick shares to do with this, and then we'll be ready to rock and roll on today's message, which is the cost of staying stuck. I think this is a really good one to talk about this time of year, because this is a time of year that often we will start to excuse our aspirations and pursuits of our goals and start to say, we'll start to slow down, ease up, and say, I can do it next year. I'm too busy with the holidays, blah, blah, blah. All right, cool. Got that done. Post. Okay, got that all done. Oh, it doesn't have to be an emoji, Linda, but it could be an emoji if you have a favorite emoji. Let's see. Thumbs up, mushrooms. All right, so let's dive into today's quick video, the cost of staying stuck. And I want to share with you two stories about stuck. And I guess for edification purposes, let's define what we mean by stuck and being stuck. Stuck, as I would define it, and this is not just my definition, but the definition I've heard from hundreds of people at this point I've worked with and helped to get unstuck. Stuck is where we are the proverbial hamster on the hamster wheel, where life keeps doing the same thing over and over again. Time passes, the days turn to weeks, the weeks turn to months, the months turn to years, and nothing's changed, except for maybe some wrinkles on the skin, maybe the weight on the scale, whatever the case may be. But all in all, nothing's changed. Our relationships haven't improved. The quality of our life hasn't been really radically enhanced. We're not earning more money. We're not traveling anymore. We're not doing more of what we really want to do. Things are kind of okay. They're meh at best, but it's kind of that comfortably uncomfortable place, right? Where we know that we want more. We know that there's something more, but for whatever reason, we're not doing it nor achieving it. And we've just kind of gotten to the space where we've accepted that the place we're at is okay. And we start to tell ourselves stories around that about why things are the way they are. It's not my fault. It's not this. It's not that. It's just how it is. This is how life turned out. There's nothing I can do to change it. That would be one example of being stuck. Another example of being stuck would be in a place where you are consciously aware that you want to do something more. You want to have a better relationship. You want to have a better career. You want to earn more money. You want to start a new endeavor. You want to pursue a new hobby. You want to do something radically different, but you haven't, and you don't. And instead, what you find is you keep settling for the same thing over and over and over again. And you keep settling for the same thing, hoping that you may win some sort of a mental and emotional lottery and things might get better, but they never do. And so instead, what you keep doing is you keep excusing it for, well, maybe next week, maybe next month, maybe next year. et cetera, et cetera. And you'll find lots of reasons, justifications, and excuses to support that, won't you? I can't afford it. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. I don't have the effort. I don't have the money. I don't have this. I don't have that. I'm unable to. I can't. I'm too old. I'm too young, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Anytime we have to excuse ourselves after pursuing and going after something we really want, that would definitely qualify as what I would qualify as being stuck. And I don't know if any of you have ever been in that space that you would agree with it. Because all we're doing is we're just excusing ourselves from having to put ourselves out there. We're just excusing ourselves from having to take a risk on ourselves. We're excusing ourselves from, dipping our toes into the water of our greatness. We're excusing ourselves from what it would be like to step into our greatest potential. And again, we keep coming back to this place of settling. And this isn't to say that there's anything wrong with settling, if that's what you want, but who this is speaking to specifically is the people who you're stuck when you have something in your heart and in your mind that you want more. If you don't want more, if you're just content and happy the way things are, and that's that, then I wouldn't qualify that as being stuck. But I would definitely qualify being stuck as if there's a desire for more, there's a want for more, and there's no action towards it. But instead there's an acceptance or there's an excuse making and something to try to justify why things stay the same. I want to share two stories that highlight this, and I think that they really are a great illustration on the cost of stuckness and what it can deprive us on for so long. Linda, stuck for so long. I appreciate you sharing that, Linda, and we should definitely talk about that. So there's a woman, how many of you know who Diane Thomas is? When I say the name Diane Thomas, does it ring a bell to anyone? And you can share on here if it does, but if not, for those of you who don't recognize her name, Diane Thomas was a really talented writer who she had gone to like Harvard's gotten to Harvard for the writing program or some prestigious school like a Harvard type university. And she was taking a writing class and she turned in a paper that she was really excited about. And the professor responded and basically failed her. She was on a scholarship too. So she approached the professor and said, hey, I really need to I can't have an F in this class. I really need a good grade. I have to keep my scholarship. I can't afford to come here otherwise. If I lose a scholarship, I won't be able to attend. And the professor told her, he said, well, this writing you wrote is the worst garbage I've ever read. It's absolute crap. And he said, I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. I'll give you a B. I'll pass you with a B under the condition that you promise me you will never write anything again. She kind of swallowed and her heart sunk because she had always been told she was a good writer and all she'd ever wanted to be since she was a little girl was a writer. But she took the deal. She didn't want to get kicked out of school. She didn't want to lose her scholarship. And so she said, okay. And she never wrote again. 16, 17 years go by. And there's a production company that is set up in town where she is. There was a production company or there's some news story. I can't remember exactly, but essentially there was a bunch of journalists and writers and whatnot who had gathered around. They all happened to be having lunch one day. And Diane sees them over there and she walks over them and she says, hey, excuse me, I hate to be rude. I don't want to interrupt you, but I just had to say, my name's Diane and I had wanted to be a writer when I had wanted to be a writer once upon a time. And I think it's so awesome that all of you did it and that you're actually writing and earning a living doing that, because I had always wanted to do that and I never did. And it's great that you're doing it. So congratulations. And one of the people sitting there eating basically looked up at her and said, bullshit. And she said, excuse me? And he said, bullshit. She said, what do you mean? He said, well, if you really want to be a writer, you'd be writing, but you're not. And she said, oh, no, you're not understanding. She said, see, what happened was somebody told me one time, I had a professor, I had a good authority that I can't write, that I'm not a good writer. And so that's why I didn't do it. And there was something about this situation, this dynamic, that the person looked at her and said, hey, tell you what, why don't you send me some of your writing? I'll read it. And if it's good, I'll pass it on to my agent. And Diane was kind of taken back by this. And so she said, okay, why not? She went home and she wrote nonstop for a number of weeks, a number of months, and basically wrote a novel. she turned it over to this guy, and about a couple months goes by, and she was beginning to doubt and think, oh, it was silly or stupid or whatever it was to even try it. And he calls her up and says, Diane, this is amazing. This is absolutely phenomenal. I've passed it on to my agent. My agent's going to be in contact with you shortly. A couple weeks goes by. The agent reaches out to Diane and says, Diane, this is amazing. We want to option this. We want to make it into a movie. Diane's kind of shocked by this. And so anyways, the book gets turned into a movie, and the movie is called Romance in the Stone. It was a really popular, what is it called? Action romantic movie that came out in I think it came out in the 80s maybe, starring Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner. It's a great film if you haven't seen it. And then she also wrote the sequel, Jewel of the Nile. Now, Romance in the Stone was a huge box office hit. It was, if you've seen the movie, you definitely know it's still, I think, a great movie. I remember seeing it, and it's been a few years since I've seen it, but it's still such a great movie to watch. Now, the point of it is since then she's gone on to write several of the books. The big point of this is, though, is that Diane was someone who had this talent. She had this voice in her side of her that she knew she was capable of something more, but she stayed stuck for 16, 17 years. For 16 and 17 years, the world was robbed of her potential, what she could have offered and contributed to us. Think about how many great stories and how many wonderful movies and how much that we all missed out on because she stayed stuck. And that's often what happens when we stay stuck. Is, see, when we stay stuck and we don't honor the voice in here and in here, and we don't go after what we're capable of, we don't pursue our dreams, but instead we stay on that hamster wheel of life and we keep settling instead of going for what we're really capable of. We're not just depriving ourselves of our greatness and our potential, but we're depriving the world at large too. Because each and every one of us have a cause and effect in the world, and the, you know, what you do and who you are and how you contribute and how you show up in each and every day. It stands to reason that the potential for you to impact and make a positive difference in someone's life is there, and it can only be enhanced by you stepping into your greatness. But see, when we stay stuck, we never will and we'll never achieve that because we just get to a place where we settle. So if you're someone who finds yourself continuing to make excuses, continuing to stay in the hamster wheel and settling for less and staying stuck when you know there's something more, you have to ask yourself, really, why? Is it worth it? And how long am I going to keep doing this to myself? How long am I going to keep robbing the world and depriving myself of my greatness? One other quick example of this. A circus was in town, and they had a young elephant. And they would keep the young elephant on a stake in between shows. And so what they would do is when they'd set up all the tents and stuff, they'd put the stake in the ground, they put a chain around it, and then the young elephant was on there. And then it would get however much space to move, maybe 10 feet, maybe 30 feet, I'm not sure. But this was how the young elephant was raised. It was raised that it was always going to have, it always had this chain around its neck. It was always, but more specifically, it was confined to the space of the chain wherever the stake was. As time went on, the elephant just learned that this was its place, that there was no other place for it to explore. This was the distance it could go, and that was that. Several years passed, and a father and a son, his young child, were taking a tour from behind the circus through the grounds, and the father knew the owner or whatever the story was. And as they're walking through the back, the young boy and the father look over at this elephant that's now grown and it's got much bigger. It's a fairly large elephant at this point. The young boy pulls on his father's shirt sleeve and says, "Dad," he said, "how come that elephant doesn't go anywhere?" He said, it just stays there. What keeps it there?" The father leans over to his friend who's the owner of the circus and says, he said, "Hey, that's a really curious thing. That elephant's so big and massive, and I'm really surprised that it doesn't go wandering off and do stuff. And why isn't it breaking off of that stake? It's just a little tiny thing." And the owner looks at him and says, "Well, we've had that elephant chained for so long, its entire life, that it grew up learning that was all the space it had. And so what it's come to accept, what it's come to believe to be true, is that the elephant only has this much space to move around. Here was this big, massive, powerful animal that was capable of breaking away like that. It had the strength inside of it. It had the potential inside it. It had the possibility inside it. But because it had been learned and taught and reinforced over and over and over again, it learned to believe that its life was only capable of being lived in a space about this big. See, so often in life, when we learn and we start to accept being stuck, what we learn is we learn that our life is only capable of being lived in a space this big. When deep down inside of each and every one of us, we have the power, the potential, the possibility to break free and live life in a much larger scale. But we get in this habit of settling for a mediocrity, mental and emotional. We get in this habit of settling for this is as good as it gets. We get in the habit of settling for, it's not my fault, it's this way, it's everybody else's. And we start pointing all the fingers of blame instead of acknowledging the fingers pointing back at us. Each and every one of you have inside of you the same power and potential that elephant did, but the only difference between the people who stay stuck and the people who don't is what they do with that power and what they do with that potential. So many people will spend their lives settling and just saying, this is it, and being like the elephant and believing that their life is never going to expand beyond this space because they're unwilling to look themselves in the mirror and see the potential and power they have inside of them. And then more specifically, they're unwilling to tap into that and start to use it. This is a time of year where we often will condense our space down even more, and we'll put aside some of our goals or dreams or aspirations, and we'll say next year, next year, next year. And then when next year rolls around and we have our New Year's resolutions, we might come up with a little vim and vigor, but then we start doing the same thing as we've always done. We start looking for excuses, reasons, justifications about why we can't and why we're unable to, and then life continues on as. If you spent any amount of your time being stuck, you know how costly it's been for you. And it stands to reason that it's going to continue to be as costly as that as life continues on forward. What I would encourage each and every one of you to do, if you're so compelled, and if you're willing to explore the power and potential inside of you that elephant has, the same power and potential that you do, I would love to invite you to have a conversation with me about getting unstuck, about what life can be like when you're free from those chains, when you set yourself free. I would say that of the top 3 things clients reach out to me in my work with coaching encompasses, easily in the top 3 is helping people get unstuck. Because when we get unstuck, what we find on the other side of that is purpose, it's passion, it's fulfillment, it's an enhanced quality of life, and it's an experience. Boy, it's a tongue twister. An experience of life beyond anything that we've ever experienced before. What keeps us from that is our stuckness, what we have in here and what we have in here. The thoughts we think, the feelings we feel, the fears we have, the uncertainty and the insecurities, the limiting beliefs. But those are all things that we've constructed or we've been taught, which means we can deconstruct and we can unlearn. But it takes some guidance, it takes some leadership, and that's where I would come in and help you with this. So if this has resonated with you at all, if you'd like some help with this, if you're really serious about getting unstuck and finishing out 2018 strong and marching into 2019 as your most free and awesome self, kind of like that with getting unstuck, free and awesome. I would love to sit down and have a conversation with you. I'm going to post a link here in the chat bar you can use to fill out a short form, and then you and I can set up a time to meet, and we can talk about exactly how coaching can help you get unstuck, become unstoppable, and most importantly, allow you to live life experiencing fully your greatest you. Because if you learned anything from Diane, the elephant, life's going to pass by, and there is something magical and there's some potential inside of you. I believe it to be true because 1, you're here listening to this still. Number 2, you don't need to take my word for it, because you can look in the mirror, and if you have an honest conversation with yourself, you know it's there. It's been here and here all along. It's just you've learned how to keep it at bay and keep it suppressed. No more. You know what it's like to be stuck. Now it's time to find out what it's like to be unstuck. I hope this message has been helpful. Any questions at all about this, put them in the comments. You can send me a message. I do hope some of you will take me up on this opportunity. I would love to chat with you more in depth about how coaching can help you get unstuck. And I wish you all an amazing rest of your Tuesday. I'll be back here at some point tomorrow. It'll just be a little bit different time because I'm going to be having a kind of a fun food day tomorrow and with some friends and whatnot. But I will definitely hop on here and say hello at some point. Sending lots of love to each and every one of you. And I truly hope that some of you resonate with this message and find the courage within yourself to click the link, fill out the form, and set up a time to meet with me, because it would be pretty awesome for you to have this experience. I'll just leave it at that, and we'll have some fun in the mystery. All right, everybody, take care. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.